For the first project in our class, we're going to be making a fully responsive website using PHP scripting, specifically that is in service to creating templates and special functions that do a lot of automated things. So I want to go over the assignment with you because there's a lot to it and it's going to be spread out over a long period of time. You'll find that in this class, everything is project-based. So even though there are a lot of exercise, sort of practice exercises that I'm going to have you do, you're not going to get really specific grades on those things sort of the way that you might with like math homework or something. The way that you're going to use your practice exercise is that they're going to be done with the purpose of gaining more knowledge so that you can cumulatively build your skills up to the point where you can do this project. And many of your exercises are actually going to specifically gear you to being able to use them as components within this project. So let's just kind of go over some of this. All right. First of all, it is 30% of your entire semester grade, so it's significant. Second thing is that on this quick links page, or on this page, excuse me, you'll find a set of quick links at the top in case you just want to jump down to a specific place in the page that you're looking for so you don't have to scroll through the whole thing. Okay, let's go to the overview. I'm going to kind of just go through a lot of this, even though you're going to have it later to go back and read stuff. I am going to actually go over a lot of it with you so that you see what I feel is really important. And I know that you can read, first of all, but I would like for you to not to skip through this video. I would actually like for you, if you want to make it go faster, I would rather that you speed it up than skip through it in case you miss something. So it's going to be completely responsive, as I said before, and it is going to have a minimum of 4 pages. You can have more. Absolutely, you can have more, but it has to have a minimum of 4 pages, and it's going to use a foundation level PHP include file system, like templating system. There are lots of different more advanced templating systems, but this is a foundation level so that you can really start to understand like how larger content management systems and things like that are made, because later we will be getting into using a CMS, WordPress. Okay, so anyway, you're also going to have to implement a lot of different custom PHP functions that automate portions of your site, and you're also going to have to develop a basic content strategy for whatever topic that you choose for your site design. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. But even though this is highly technical, this is a highly technical assignment, you will be graded significantly on the visual design sophistication and relevance to the topic that you choose. So, I don't want you to just sort of do the demonstrations along with me and then think that you're kind of done, except for like maybe swapping out some colors and just changing a font, right? There's a lot more to it than that. So you will be graded on design stuff. And I sort of want to focus on that too, because if you are taking this class, not as a media arts and technology student, maybe you're coming from computer science or some other related field, and really the only thing that you care about getting out of the class maybe is specifically the PHP stuff, just the technical how-to stuff. You need to also realize that all of those things, all of that scripting and all of that technical stuff, it exists within a context of design. I mean, usability is the most important thing whenever we talk about the products that we use. So design is a huge, huge part of that. And I'm talking not just about technical design, but about visual design as well. And we'll have like critiques and things like that so that you can have some feedback. And as a result, we will have progressive phases and due dates. So that's a really important thing about this assignment. This is going to go over a third to half the semester or something like that. So it's really important that you keep up with your progressive due dates. If you don't, you probably are going to fail the class or very well come close to it, and it's going to set you up to be in a really bad place for the final 2 projects, which are 70% of your grade, right? So it's really important that you keep track of this stuff. All right, so this project has, as I said, progressive due dates, and we'll go over them specifically, but they also have, that means major phases. There are 3 major phases of this project. Okay, and so the topic and content options, I'm going to give you some different topics that you can use along with the different, like, quote unquote client content and direction. Some of the clients would be potentially real clients. If they like what you do for them, they might use your work. So you have that as an option. But it also, the point of it is that because this is a really technical assignment where you also have to focus on design, it's also, I think, really helpful for you to already have the content given to you so that you don't have to come up with development of a bunch of different stuff, because that can be really challenging in and of itself. But if you don't find that any of the content or project topics that I've given you are desirable for your portfolio needs, you can propose a new option to me, okay? Okay, so the assignment objectives, I've already said a lot of those things. I'm going to let you read through some of these. It needs to be user-friendly and have an intuitive, good design that matches your topic. Okay, so let's look at the project phases and grading. And to get to each one of these, you just need to click here and it expands, okay? And then you can hide it. And part of why I did that is because these process phases are actually, there's a lot of content in them, and so it can be overwhelming whenever they're just taking up the entire screen, and then you scroll and scroll and scroll. This way you can collapse stuff, so like once you move past project phase 1, you don't always have to keep that open. You can just open phase 2 and so forth. Okay, so let's look at phase 1. All right, so the beginning phase is worth 30 points out of your total project, your project grade, okay? So the way it's going to work is that you're first going to design a template, and that template, first of all, I'm going to give you something that you can start with. I'm going to give you a really basic set of structural HTML, like semantic HTML. And what we're going to do in a demonstration is I'm going to show you a mobile first approach to styling it. And probably a lot of the things that you've done in web design have not been mobile first approach. I'm willing to take a guess that most of you haven't done that before, because it's actually something that a lot of times people don't do until they get into their chosen profession if they're doing web development. And the reason that we're going to be doing mobile first approach, I talk about this a lot more in depth later in the tutorials, but it's because you know, so many people now are on mobile devices, and it's the hardest one to design for, quite frankly, because you have such a limited amount of real estate and you have to make decisions about what is important about the hierarchy of things. And so we're going to do mobile first approach for that reason, but also because it's better for loading time for different image kinds of assets and things like that, as well as the fact that you'll see if you actually design this way, you'll actually find that writing media queries is a lot easier than having to go backwards to do stuff from a desktop view. So anyway, so the first part of this is going to be just HTML and CSS. And then at the end, we'll inject some JavaScript for a mobile menu, okay, for something that collapses. If you were to read through this, essentially what I'm going to do is I provide you a lot of this content that's just dummy content, like a lot of lorem ipsum and stuff. But one of the things that it has in there is it has like block quotes, it has unordered lists, it has lists, it has all these different things that you might not normally just start with in a page, because it makes you come up with styling decisions about those different elements, so that whenever you do have them at some point, you've already made the styling decisions. You don't have to go back and fix that. And if you want to read about the technical requirements for this portion of the assignment, you can click here on any of these. So for instance, if I were to click on the JavaScript requirements, it's going to jump down to the bottom of the page, and I actually outline, you know, what part of JavaScript is required for the first phase. I'll say phase 1. All right, so anything that says phase 2 or 3, obviously that's not required for whenever you get to your, you know, when you're just finishing your first phase of the assignment. Okay, so how to start phase 1? Okay, first of all, you need to decide the content. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to make something that is an electrician's website? So I've actually provided you with the content and with some directives about what this fictional electrician's company would like to have for a website, and like some of the things that they envision their pages as having. And it's in a text file, and there are a bunch of images that, you know, theoretically a person would give you If you're lucky, they would give you pictures. I have provided a lot of pictures. Admittedly, a lot of them are downloaded from other places, so feel free to use different pictures if you want, but you do have to include pictures, obviously, because we have a function that is going to require, that's going to be required later in your assignment. Okay, so anyway, so this is one option. You could do an electrician's website, and the content is provided. And part of the reason, just so you know, before I go too much further, part of the reason that I have actually gone to the trouble of collecting content to allow for you to use is not just it's not just for the sake of making your job easier for this assignment. It's also because I want you to feel like you have something that could be a reasonably decent portfolio piece, and something that looks like a real thing. It's not a bad thing to have, right? So anyway, so an electrician's website is good because then it shows you could do something for a business. All right, and then there's another option. So you could develop for a fine artist portfolio. This current semester, these are the two artists, and there might be a third one coming up later. These are the two artists who currently are participating. If you're seeing this in a different semester, it might be different. There might be something different here. It might not even be artists for all I know. All right, but for right now, you have this as another option, and the assets are downloadable here for this person. The RFP is coming later, request for proposal. That's the thing that gives you a lot of guidance as to what this person is looking for in a website. A link to the current site so that you can go and see what they're trying to not do. All right, they're trying to replace. And then this person has assets and RFP combined. Okay, so and then another option would be that you can develop an informational site that uses your own written articles that are thorough discussion responses on responsive web design, server-side scripting, and web CMS. Later in the semester, you're going to be given some prompts and discussion boards to do some research and go and find out more about some topics. And if you want to use the articles that you write for the content in this website, you could do that too. That's okay. A lot of students have done that in the past. But you will need to find your own accompanying images if you're going to do that. So you'll have to do a little bit of extra work. And I'll be honest that a lot of the pictures, that you would have to go and figure out for these things, they're kind of abstract concepts. And so finding pictures for them sometimes is a creative process in and of itself. Lastly, you can also propose something to me, providing a complete outline of the site and the content it will have. Right? You have to get approval if you're going to do this. And whenever I say make a proposal to me, I don't mean send me an email saying, hey, I want to do my portfolio site. How does that sound? That's not good enough. That's not a proposal. You need to actually come up with a proposal that goes through, like what the different features of the site are going to be. Whenever I go and look at a piece of artwork, am I going to be looking at it on a single page, or am I going to be looking at it in a carousel slideshow, or am I going to be looking at it in a thumbnail gallery? Is it going to have, are you going to have an artist statement? Are you going to have, what are you going to have? Like, you're going to have your resume somewhere, contact information. Like, you need to outline it. And maybe a good way of getting an idea of how to come up with a sort of outline is that you could actually go and look at the electrician file resources just to see, like, just as a simple text file, how some of that stuff was structured, how a client would have given it to you, maybe. All right, so then the next thing you need to do to actually get started after you decide what you're going to do is that you want to download this beginning template structure. There's also a link to it on the tutorial that you're going to go to, but you're going to download this starting template structure. All right, and then you're going to go to click here on creating a mobile first design template. It's going to take you some time. You're not allowed to use Bootstrap for this assignment. Some people have gotten in the habit of using that, and there's nothing wrong with using Bootstrap for your projects out in the world. I want you to not just rely on using some other predefined thing though. I actually want you to have to walk through the steps of doing a lot of stuff from scratch so that you'll have a very good understanding of that process. So no Bootstrap. If that's something you wanted to use, I say no, okay? And that's true of any other kind of similar predefined grid structure. You need to design it from scratch. That being said, you will be kind of watching a tutorial to give you guidance. You don't have to stick to it. Like, in fact, you're actually going to be required to customize your work so that it does not look like my boring demonstration template. And just to give you sort of an idea, here's what the template kind of ends up looking like when you're done. I mean, it's pretty boring. I mean, it's not horrible, right? But it could be a lot more interesting. And, you know, you can see that it is responsive and stuff. And here's the little mobile menu. And that's the way that that works, okay? And then let me just jump back over here. Okay, that's what you're going to end up doing. And then lastly, you're going to end up doing this mobile menu here, and that's the thing that I just showed you. Whenever you go here and it does that, right? That's the mobile menu. And the thing about that mobile menu, by the way, is I'd like for you to at least go through the demo and do that version of it, because the way that I show you how to do it is not the way that a lot of ready-made ones are that you can download and use. I show you how to do it so that there's a fallback method to the navigation in case for some reason JavaScript is broken on the browser or it's disabled. There are cases where people are in environments where JavaScript is not allowed because of security concerns. And if that's the case, it's something like 2% of a lot of user agents or browsers that go to different websites. But that's 2%. And if you're, let's say, designing something for a government agency, 2% of like 1 million people is a lot of people not able to get your service or use your website. So I want you to have the experience of doing that. Okay. Progressive phase 1 due date. You need to check Canvas for that due date. It's going to change from semester to semester, so I don't like to publish that here. Here's some student work examples so that you can get some idea of how not to just make it look like this, right? And the other thing that I do want to point out that's different maybe from some of the other examples that you're going to see, this is really an important one, is that in the previous semesters, I only had an H1 in my tutorial that was up here, and so a lot of people only put an H1, and I realized that that potentially is problematic because on any website really you should have two things in the main area that identifies the page and the site, and that is the site ID or site identifier like the name of your website or a company, and then also some sort of page identifier so that people kind of have an idea of where they are. And so you're going to notice that it's going to seem like these two things maybe don't exist in some of the examples that I give you. So just remember that that is a little bit different this time. Okay, and here's an example, like instead of having page 1, page 2, and so on, this would be like once you've got the naming system set up and you're able to click to these different things, and then automatically, just so you know, it's automatically naming the page, it's automatically naming the tab up here for the title. It's automatically doing a lot of different things based on some function that I teach you how to write. Okay, so here's an example of one that somebody did, and you can see an example, first of all, just of the styling. Now, one of the things that is kind of nice in terms of looking at some of these examples is that you can see like that this carousel in the background is already working. Obviously, in your template, you're not going to have like imagery like this that's constantly changing. I mean, I guess you could go above and beyond and do that if you want, but later you're going to have to make it as a non-static and a dynamic thing that I show you how to write. But you can still get a sense of the styling that this guy used in terms of like, how he's got a different font and how he styled his text, and he's got like this hanging indent, which is really nice. This is a random image that he had used, but you could put an image that's in there as a placeholder so that you can style it. He's got this little call out, which is really nice. So, you could kind of think about the topic that you're doing, if it's research based or if it's the artist thing or the electrician thing, and you could kind of think of some things that would be really nice to have. For instance, like you know, a call out or something. And then he's got this stuff down here, and whenever you can see how it's responsive, that everything goes to a single column here, everything scales properly, his menu works, okay, he's all right, and so on and so on. And here's a block quote and how he styled that, which is really nice. Okay, so you can see that that is a nice site. Okay, here's another one. This person did something on sushi that's in San Diego. And she actually did a lot of different stuff. Okay, and then I think there's supposed to be a picture. Yeah, picture's loading here. Okay, and we can go back home. And so you can see that these are some different examples. This is a slider, right? Nice website. And then in terms of responsiveness, you can see what happens here. So that's working nicely. Okay. Again, and now this person chose to do, like I had mentioned before, use some stuff for his from his research that he did, writing about responsive web design, scripting, CMS, that kind of stuff. Okay, and you can see he did a lot of really nice styling here. So he's actually got some information kind of about himself, like down at the bottom. Okay, sort of like you would find in a lot of like blog type things where the author has a picture at the bottom and like a little blurb about themselves. Okay, so that's an example. Another example, somebody decided you want to do something about Halloween candy. It's kind of, you know, interesting. So you can see he's got a lot of facts, and he went a little bit above and beyond, and he did his in such a way that his arrays, whenever he built his function, it actually also stored information about the picture. It was a little bit more detailed even than what I showed him how to do. So he went a little bit further, and so you can just see some different applications, okay, of what he did. We can go to the gallery, right, and then here's a gallery that's a lightbox gallery, and so on. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm just going to get out of that because the site's kind of slow. But anyway, and then also if you want to look at some other student work here, there's more student work for you to look at. And there's no audio, by the way, on this, so don't think that there's something wrong with your computer if it isn't playing, okay? And then in this video, it's just, I'm just showing you how to click around and stuff, okay? So you can see like that this guy did something that was kind of like his own website, you know? So the other thing too to consider as you're doing this project is that, I'm going to pause this. The other thing to consider is that you can do something for this project and then do the exact same topic for, say, the next project, or even possibly instead of the next project, it would be for the final project or something, so that you can see the difference between designing something from scratch like this, writing your own functions and all of this stuff, versus using, like, say, a WordPress platform. And you can think about how the content strategy differs, and how just the nature of what you can and can't do with ease is, you know, different, how things can look. And so that is something that you might want to consider, and you could even do it sort of like as a case study comparison for your portfolio, especially if you are a web development student. I mean, all of you obviously are web development in some capacity if you're taking this class, but if you are a web design and development major and that's your thing, that could be an interesting case study for you to do two different platforms with the same content. Okay, so so that was the phase one. So with phase one, obviously you wouldn't have a completed site, you would just have the basic stylistic stuff done so that you could see stylistically kind of what some other students did. I showed you their finished work, but you wouldn't have, you know, like fully functional galleries and things like that in there yet.